You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, we were a little late because I got started talking politics with Mr. Cooper, and we said, well, look up the clock. And also we're looking at this new studio layout. Isn't it nice?
It is.
It's beautiful.
It's come a long way.
And the right colors, too.
Baylor green.
Baylor green. Yeah, it looks great. I'm telling
Where's
you.
that burn? He said he could change the colors. He could throw some burnt orange up there.
Not if he wants to keep any clients of any
some
quality.
frog purple.
Frog purple. No. Frogs. Even just as bad. You know, it's, no. But anyway, I was watching the Horns and Aggies with my son, who's an Aggie graduate school graduate. And I did not know my son was on the Aggie payroll as an assistant coach with all the suggestions he had and the commentary that came afterwards when they didn't listen to him. But we were, they didn't hear us from Burleson, so there you are. But anyway, we're going to talk about the Central Appraisal District elections and
Yes, sir.
issues. Apparently there's the usual drama that goes on with these things. There always is. It wouldn't be politics without drama. Also, towards the end, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the property tax proposals down in Austin that are at least been proposed, which we know aren't going to be exactly what's going to be passed, but we'll see. At least it's the starting point, the template for which they're going to work for. But honestly, guys, if you need to come by and take a look at this studio, it's really, really done very nicely. I could see Taylor now without being blocked off.
Well, that's a good thing or bad thing.
That way you can look at me like, well, you get on with the program here. Also, it's just very neat and spiffy. And if you're looking to do a podcast, this is where to do it.
I might know a guy.
Yeah, I might know a guy is right. I mean, this is where you do these things. Okay.
Well, I thought I was in the wrong place when I didn't see the big bundle of wire to the side of his.
That's what I was thinking
studio
too.
in there.
Yeah,
No, but it looks great.
It does, and it. I think it's going to add quite a bit to everybody's show that does their podcasts here. Okay, let's talk about our sponsors because it's been a pretty busy week or so for Thanksgiving week. I know it was both at our place and at Gina's. Our place, I know that what they did a lot of businesses for take-home pies, which is really, really good. So if you're going to do one for Christmas, you better order it a couple of weeks, 20 days in advance. If you don't do that, you call them up like 2 days before, say, hey, I need a pie for Christmas. They're going to say, well, go to the store and get you one because I was there about a week before Thanksgiving, and they were stacking boxes, pre-made folded boxes up, and they're like 6 feet, 5 rows across. I said, you're going to need all those boxes? And said, that's what we're going to do in the next 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So it was not like at all, unusual. So if you want the pies and you want, other, pre-made stuff, you better do it early. And at Gina's, they had a big week. Last night, they had Santa, of course, with Susie Morgan singing along. They also, they have, great deals going on during the holidays. And sometimes you just get tired of cooking, right?
Yep.
We had a big deal Thanksgiving like everybody else does. But after a while, you're like, I need a pizza, instead of the usual stuff, And so that's a place to get it. Also, thank you to our friends over at Southern Jim. Oh, Wild Cigar. I'm sorry, guys. I was going a little ahead of myself. Wild Cigar, I know on the 13th, a week from Friday, they have the third anniversary, 3-year anniversary. And they got specials, and they'll have a cigar vendor there with some specials and whatnot. Also, it's both at Gina's and our place and Wild are a good place to get gift certificates, because, you may not smoke cigars, but you know somebody that does. Or, it's a good place to give as an office gift or whatever else. It's same with the pizzas and whatnot. And so those 3 places are all selling gift cards, and that's a good place to do it. But I know Wild's got a bunch of stuff planned for Christmas, including the one a week from Friday. Also, now it's time for Southern Jim, and they got a big deal too going on. They got a party coming up this Thursday night, 5 to 8, and Gayla likes to entertain, so it's going to be a nice party. So wear a clean shirt, and she would prefer that. And they're going to have some deals and whatnot, but they also have hors d'oeuvres from Revelry. They're going to have an open bar. They're going to have some jazz entertainment, and it's going to be live entertainment. So it's going to be really nice. It's worth putting in your schedule, to say the least. So Southern Jim at Christmas time, I know starting tomorrow, they're going to have extended hours and Saturdays and whatnot. They're going to be pretty busy the next 2 weeks. But Christmas is already on top of us, right? I mean,
it is. It's the schools they give off for a week over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
They only go back for like two weeks, and then they're off for close to a month.
Yeah,
it creeps up on you quick, boy.
it sure does. And next thing you know, it's right when it's right on top of you. You know, boom! I got to get presents and whatnot. This always happened when I was in school. I had final exam week right before that, and we would be, so focused in on that, and boom, we're done. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, it's Christmas. I got to do something about all this. So there you are. Anyway, thank you to Gayla at Southern Gym. Also, Old Pro Roofing, John Williams, 817-734-2756. It's supposed to rain Wednesday. I don't know if it is or not, but that'd be a bad time to find out you need roof repair. So have them come out there and take a look. And if there are damages, the insurance companies are getting very, very particular about paying for what they consider to be old damage. I mean, if it's 365 days or older, by their estimation, you're going to be out of luck. So you need to have a routine roof inspection. So if there is some damage from a previous storm that happened within the last year, you can file today and get it taken care of more easily. So 817-734-2756, and they go all over the DFW Metroplex. So it's not just Johnson County, certainly. Also, thank you to our friends over at the Wethington Agency, particularly Jeff Kelly, 817-781-0546. He'd be pretty interested in this discussion, no doubt, being a real estate man, what they're going to do about property taxes and things of that nature, because that is a factor when you're moving into any area.
Sure.
Is what the property taxes are. I mean, I've talked to them a few times, talked to other agents, and they'll say that that's on the top 3 or 4 things they talk about is property taxes, schools, police, economic development, that kind of thing.
Oh, and impact fees are increasing across the area too. Municipalities trying to slow down growth a little bit. Impact fees are going up quite a bit, which is going to affect at least some of their new builds and stuff. So.
Yeah, so 817-781-0546 is why you get a hold of more Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com with the Wethington Agency. Also, Local Life, they're celebrating their 15-year anniversary this week. On the cover is, I believe, going to be nonprofits. I haven't seen it yet. I know she was working on it. It should be in your box today or tomorrow, and it'll be all over the county pretty soon. And over 30,000 homes, several businesses have them. So 15 years of serving the community. It's a really good way to get your word out to the buying public in general region. So it goes to Crowley, Joshua, Burleson, of course, even down to Alvarado. So it's a good place for local businesses to advertise themselves. Also, Toys for Tots. That's going on this week, December 5th. Okay, it's going to be going on over at Elk Stadium. Jack Matson can help you with that. If you want to call Jack, it's 682-282-9226. He can give you the information. But there are boxes all over the place I've seen. I know our place in Gina's has boxes. There's all over. It's a big, big deal. So go by between 6 and 9:30 p.m. So it's a good way to spend your evening. You can go to the party at Gala's and then go to Toys for Tots. We're going to have entertainment there. We're going to have the performing groups from the 2 high schools there. Also, by the way, speaking of December 5th, if you want to add this to your schedule, I know from 5 to 7, Next Step Women's Center is having an open house, and they want to show off what they're doing too. So December 5th is a busy day in this community, so you can make a whole evening out of it. So there you go. All right, let's talk about the Central Appraisal District. Now, I can tell you that most people, aren't familiar at all with the CAD until they get the bill, all right? And they don't understand all the politics behind it. So you're going to hopefully educate a lot of people today about how that works. So exactly what is going on with the Central Appraisal District and why should we be paying attention to it?
So to get everybody up to speed, the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, they're an elected entity, but they're not elected like traditional elected officials. So we, as citizens, we elect the city councils, we elect the commissioners court, we elect school board trustees, and those are taxing entities. They have the authority to assess ad valorem property tax to citizens. So ad valorem property tax is run through the Central Appraisal District with appraisals and stuff like that. So the elected officials that we elect are allocated a number of votes. There's 5,000 total votes, and they're each allotted a number of votes based on the property wealth for their basic footprint. And they allocate those votes for the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. Those board of directors, basically, they're effectively, and the best way I can describe it is they're like a city council that oversees a city. So the board of directors would be overseeing the Central Appraisal District, who's run by the chief appraiser, or a school district, so they're like the school board who oversees the superintendent. So some of their main responsibilities would be approving a budget, setting the reappraisal plan for the Central Appraisal District, and overseeing the job performance, the contract and stuff of the chief appraiser. And some breaking news is the chief appraiser, Jim Hudspeth, over 40 years in the business, he recently retired very quickly. And so we don't understand why that's happened yet. Hopefully there'll be some information in the next Central Appraisal District Board of Directors. But over the last 6-8 months, they've had two long-standing board of directors resign, Toby Ford and Vance Castles, and now Jim Hudspeth has retired immediately.
Who was the first one again?
Vance Castles and Toby Ford. They were the two.
Toby Ford, I know. I mean, I don't know him personally, but know his family. The Ford family been part of Burleson forever.
Sure, yeah. He was there for many years, and he resigned. So when the Central Appraisal District was overturned by local citizens going to the taxing entities and petitioning for candidates that would have a little more empathy and respect to the taxpayers, Toby Ford, Vance Castles, they retained their seats. The rest of the board was overturned, and then they resigned. They were for whatever reason.
So they talk about cat elections. This is not an election like we normally are used to.
That's why we never see it. Yes,
yeah,
correct.
It's I've mentioned that to a couple of friends that they're what do y'all know about this, and they knew very little because it's not an election like a primary or a general election where the citizens participate in. Representatives will vote for this board and
who represent us
represent us. Yeah, and it is kind of like the board of directors is like a step removed in a sense from the general public, and so a lot of people just don't really even pay attention to it until they get the bill, and then they pay attention. All right, but as far as like the inner workings of it and how it's done and the procedures and whatever else, they're pretty unfamiliar. And I confess, I've only been more familiar with it having you on the show. I mean, that's how I'm getting my education. So
the 88th legislative session, they added 3 positions that are voted on by the citizens via a ballot. So there are some positions that are now voted on by the public. There is some proposed legislation being drafted for the 89th to add more people that will be voted on by the people in more traditional election.
You said they had 3, but was this on the last ballot?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It was. So Mike Manziel, Tina White got elected, and then Scott Porter, the tax collector, is actually he's on there too. So
how about that? Is that not a conflict of interest?
Everyone hears the term tax collector. He has a lot less invasive role in the actual policies compared to the chief appraiser and the appraisal review board, who have a lot more subjectivity and things that they do. I'm using the term subjectivity very loosely. There's a lot of problems we've identified. Why those problems are there, I can't really determine that.
Well, I just know I've written a lot of checks to Scott Porter over the years.
He's the one that collects it. Yeah. So he's the one that collects it. But as far as driving the Central Appraisal District as a leadership figure, it's much more the chief appraiser's role.
Craig Hunley on YouTube says, "Great show," and I'll take that in. Is this a friend of yours? I suppose.
So Craig Hunley is probably one of the most influential individuals in the state of Texas, and he started Eliminate Property Tax Texas Horse Barn Group. It's pushing 11,000 members now, and I'm really glad that he's joining us. He's in 2019, he was fed up with property taxes, and he began to develop relationships with the taxing entities and work with the taxing entities for the taxing entities to respect the taxpayers in allocating their votes towards Central Appraisal District Board of Directors that would better represent the taxpayer who's funding all local government.
Maybe you should have him on the show then.
I bet he'd come on.
Mr. Sir, if you're still with us, you're welcome to contact us, and we'll put you in. And I'm pretty booked in December because we have a shortened schedule. We're going to have Christmas and most of New Year's off, but afterwards, and particularly when the session starts, he'd be a great guest.
No, he's one of the most knowledgeable and influential people, and he has a unique ability that most don't have, which is to understand how long and determined and focused you have to stay to get change in local, municipal, and state politics. And he drives a good. He stays the course and is very committed. He's been very influential in my education. I was mainly a school district guy, and he's the one that kind of wrapped school district funding into the property tax issues and that whole thing. So.
Well, you're right about the hurdles and obstacles it takes to get anything done in government, not just, Washington, but even Austin, the county. Nothing's done quickly. When I was on the state board for teacher certification a few years ago, which is kind of a low-level board, not a high-profile one at all, except in educational issues. Sure. The quickest we could get anything done, and that's if we put it on Express, was about 9 months.
Yep.
And, 3 hearings and open comments and the stakeholders and all this other business. And I get it. All right. You don't want, something done at midnight with nobody watching. But it's still, you have to really want what you're trying to get, because, it's not something that you're just going to show up at a meeting and say, hey, how about it? And go, good idea. And they'll pass it. No, it didn't work that way, even remotely.
It's a double-edged sword. It prevents knee-jerk emotional mob rule reactions, but it also, you need to pay attention over a longer period of time and stay focused on it. In today's instant gratification world, it makes it tougher. So
now, you mentioned there are some issues involved with the CAD business.
Correct.
What are those issues?
So the way the CAD board of directors are elected from the taxing entities. So basically, in the fall, there's a period of time up until October 15th where the taxing entities can nominate individuals that will go on a ballot that go back to the taxing entities to be voted on. That vote begins after that ballot is comprised and all the taxing entities nominate individuals, and it has to be completed by December 15th. So we're in this process now. So pretty much a lot of taxing entities, only one taxing entity has to nominate somebody. So the 5 individuals that the public's been very adamant about promoting, and in fact, Craig Hunley's Eliminate Property Tax Texas Horse Barn Group has been very adamant in promoting the 5 individuals that they were being promoted were nominated by numerous taxing entities. Only one taxing entity nominated different individuals, and that was Godly ISD at the behest of Superintendent Rich Deere. And so the questions that need to be asked, and what a lot of people don't see, is that there was a large number of public that went to the majority of these meetings, is why would a taxing entity blatantly go against what the people that school board, right? The school board represents the people. And unfortunately, school boards have probably one of the toughest jobs that there is, because they have to straddle that fence between doing what's in the best interest of the school district, but also respecting the totality of the tax base, the totality of the city. That's a tough job. And some school board trustees, they fall in the trap of becoming nothing more than an extension of the administration of the school district.
Oh, that's absolutely correct.
Yes.
I could tell you as a professional educator, over the years, that's happened. I'm not saying that about Dr. Jimerson here in Burleson, but I do know in the past that has happened before, where in the board's defense is, these aren't, for the most part, professional educators.
Correct.
They're business people.
Yes.
And, and they're dealing with people that are professional educators. Many of them have advanced degrees, and so they tend to give them the large benefit of the doubt when the superintendent or the finance director of any district comes to them and say, this is the situation. And they're like, well, I'm here and I got the homework and I come here for these meetings, but you do this every day.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for years. And so they're going to give a large degree of deference to administration. And I don't really blame them for that, because if I'm sitting in that seat and I'm just somebody, even if it's done no homework, it's still, you're dealing with somebody that has a great deal more advantage over you in terms of information and experience. And so that happens. I know that this happens across the state, captured school boards.
Mm-hmm. So it needs to be looked at as you have to be able to trust that the school administration, superintendent, senior administration, chief financial officer, et cetera, that they're providing the totality of the information in context, in perspective, and proportional. And if the information being provided to the elected officials is out of proportion or incomplete, it leads to bad decision making. And I think that's what happens occasionally. But back to Godly, so they were the only ones that nominated 3 individuals that were different. Now, eventually for the vote, they actually did not vote for the 3 they nominated. They voted for the individuals that the public was demanding. The controversy here is that in an open meeting, the superintendent, Rich Deere, was questioned by Trustee Kayla Lane on if he had been politicking behind the scenes for his nominees. Now, I can't speak to whether this is a legal issue or not, but I do know that district resources are not supposed to be used to push a ballot issue.
Exactly.
So if a superintendent is sitting in an office and a superintendent is using his computer system and his time to encourage other superintendents to vote for a candidate on a ballot, that is a little bit of concerning to me. For example, Mansfield ISD, in their vote, they released their board book, so they're a lot more transparent with their information. The school board didn't make a recommendation, or the school administration did not make a recommendation. They said this is a board decision because it's a ballot issue. So it was very concerning to watch a superintendent admit in open meetings that he was speaking about this to other school districts and not justifying why. Nobody has seen the 3 individuals that Godly has nominated at any meetings speaking to any of these school boards, any of the cities. Now, no city has voted for any of these candidates. The cities have been very supportive. The county commissioner's court has been very supportive, and all of them have been very thorough and very diligent in explaining that they're happy with the current direction of the Central Appraisal District and they want to see it move forward. School districts have been very tight-lipped in why they're voting for 3 people that have yet to show up in any meetings, have yet to make their case for why they're the best choice to represent an issue as contentious as property taxes is in the state of Texas.
It's interesting. I know that superintendents, when it comes to like tax referendum and whatnot, because it's a different kind of election, it's that they can publicly support it, of course, if they're having like a bond issue or whatever else. I mean, I've been through several of these type of elections as a resident of BISD, and we had tax referendum election about a dozen years ago. We've had 2 or 3 bond elections, and it's not considered to be inappropriate for the administration to be out there pushing for this. But but we're talking about a different thing here entirely, are we not?
So they're allowed to provide factual information. They're not allowed to guide. This is Attorney General's made the decision on this. They're not allowed to use district funds or resources to guide how to vote. So comments like the children really need this, comments like that are actually in that Attorney General's decision, dissuading that's almost over the line. Well, but they are allowed to provide factual information.
When was this decision or this new change in policy? Because I do know that all the superintendents I ever worked for, when they had some sort of initiative for the public, they were out there pushing it at the Rotary Club, at parent meetings, at PTA meetings, you name it.
They're usually providing information that is very factual. It's talking about growth. It's talking about how it will, what their projections are through demographic reports and stuff like that.
Okay, so all right, I guess I just have to be very careful in how they approach it.
Usually there are packs formed. So for Joshua, their pack was Elevate Joshua.
Oh, yeah, they were on the show.
They were on the show.
Right.
And then Godly had like Vote Yes, Godly ISD Bond. So those are packs formed specifically for that. So the packs are out there pushing the bond. That's legal. That's a different entity. It's the school district and resources where it crosses a line, if that makes sense.
Now,
so yeah, you'll see packs out there and there's a lot of blurred lines.
This controversy that's dealing with the CAD right now,
yes.
How will it affect the average citizen in this area? I mean, because most people are unaware of what's going on. They're barely aware there is a central appraisal district, and like I said, they get the bill and they're outraged or whatever, or relieved. It depends on what happened for you. How would all this turmoil or controversy affect the average person here?
You should look at this as, how do you think a city council affects the direction of a city? How you think that a school board affects the direction of a school district? The Central Appraisal District Board of Directors directs the Central Appraisal District from a macro guiding point of view.
How large is the Central Appraisal District? It's not. It's more than Burleson and Joshua. It's obviously.
It's Johnson County. Every county has one.
Okay, so
there's one that has that shares. Some of the smaller counties share, but very few. But just about every county has.
I thought Somerville County, for some reason, is involved in this as well. But maybe I'm thinking of another entity.
Somerville County has their own Central Appraisal District.
Okay, then I'm thinking of
Tarrant County has its own Central.
Well, I figured they would, but I know.
I'm talking about Johnson County.
I'm just thinking of these counties out west that have Loving County with 97 people. They have their own CAD.
Yeah, I'm focused more on Johnson County and generally around it. But yeah, every county has their own Central Appraisal. I think there's one. Craig could chime in there, and he knows. But I think there's one CAD that is multiple counties.
Now, as far as the direction, what are we talking about in terms of direction? Talking about increased rates? Are we talking about decreased rates? Are we talking about maybe expanding what is considered to be taxable or non-taxable property?
Well, how about I'll show you.
Yeah,
I'll show you what.
That's what I was leading into.
So if you could pull up my thing right here.
And that's what I was pushing towards. See how this professional radio business works. I got it.
So this is a document here that we put together, and it basically talks about some property appraisals.
Where does this document accessed? Is it on? I mean, how would the people watching, listening, etc. How would they access what you're showing me here?
I can put it in the show notes if you'd like.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about this with frozen property values last time. But Texas Transparency Project, it's a Facebook group. There's TexasTransparencyProject.org. We're in the process of revamping that. But this document was compiled specifically to give to the elected officials who are voting to the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors to show them why the current Central Appraisal District Board of Directors in the direction that they're taking the Central Appraisal District needs to continue to move forward. So this describes that we found a substantial amount of frozen property values and a substantial amount that have popped up. So if you can look right here, you'll see that this property value has not changed since 2014. The improvements have not changed, the land market has not changed, and the appraised value has not changed in about 10 years. So if the Central Appraisal District's role is to appraise properties annually at fair market value, do you think there's any property in Johnson County that has not changed $1 in 10 years?
Right.
Okay. So we began to look at this, and we found 4 properties that I highlighted for these taxing entities here. Okay. So here's the 4 properties that are frozen. Okay. So then the question is, well, is this an outlier or is this a common thing? So then what we did is we developed a very large list. Now, this is the Johnson CAD website. Okay, this is the new website that the new Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, chaired by Chairman Dwayne Golding, developed to make it easy for everybody to see this information. So I stopped at 50 properties, and I'm not going to open these up because it has individuals' names on it, and we're not going to do that. So, but these are 50 properties.
But this is all public information.
It's all public information.
Right.
Correct.
I understand why you would want to drop them in the grease, but still, if anybody is interested, this isn't like done by some nefarious means by all. This is all
Central Appraisal District.
Yeah,
does
it's
this.
all.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So every property that you see here being scrolled right now, every property being seen here is frozen or has changed maybe one time in 10 years.
Is it possible some of these frozen properties are legitimately frozen?
If you can explain to me why a property would not have changed value in over 10 years when the tax code says that they are supposed to be valued or appraised at as of January 1st at market value.
Okay.
So it is possible. So I've had in-depth conversations with Jim Hudspeth before he resigned about this. He said he would get back to me, never did. He didn't have an answer for these. So every one of these properties you're seeing so far, every one of these links are frozen. So here's the biggest problem with this, and this is why the taxing entities need to continue to support the Central Appraisal District, because I'm going to get to what they've recently done to solve this problem. So now, as you can see here, additional properties identified with minimal effort time that appear with out of proportion increase. So the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors has a check and balance from the state of Texas, from the Comptroller's Office. And what they do is they take a sample of property values that were appraised at the local level. And what they do is they look to make sure that they're within 95 to 105% of the value. But they're not doing every individual property. For example, if I have 100 properties that are valued at $1 million and I value 50 of those properties at $1.5 million and the other 50 at $500,000, that averages at $1 million, so it passes the test. So when you have properties like all these up here that are frozen, you have to pass the test according to Central Appraisal District, Jim Hudspeth, and this has been asked and responded to in open meetings. You have to have ones that are overvalued. So then we have 50 properties that are overvalued. Okay. So now if you have properties that are overvalued, those are people that are suffering actual damages, considering, okay?
Well, I was going to ask you, this list of overvalues,
Yes.
Is there any overlap with that are frozen?
Define overlap. Right?
Well, I mean, are some of these the same properties?
No.
No. Okay.
This is one property.
Well, you were mentioning it. If you had several properties, one could be overvalued, another would be undervalued, and therefore, effectively, you've skirted some tax issues, right? Because, in a sense, because you've evened out your tax payment. If I had 5 properties and one was overvalued, the other 4 undervalued, but my cash payout is the same, is that
each property's individual? This happens. If you own multiple properties, you're not grouped together, so to speak.
Okay, I see.
But at the top of this, we put what? So the tax code, except as otherwise provided, this chapter is praised at its market value as of January 1st. So properties that are out of proportionally increased or frozen for extended periods of time, they wouldn't fall into this. So we're not saying that there's been anything done wrong here. We're not saying that there's been any, we're not determining why this happened. But what I can say is the Central Appraisal District, chaired by Chairman Dwayne Golding, they have now put out a RFP where they're developing a request for proposal to actually have an independent company come in and look at the Central Appraisal District and the processes and their methods to make sure that if this is what it looks like, it's going to be rectified. And if not, then it's going to have answers for it.
You mentioned a few minutes ago, you can't think of any legitimate example, why these properties should be frozen.
I can't.
So there are these two options, either direct manipulation or incompetence. Which is it?
Or laziness.
And so let me
explain why. So let me go to another let me go to another. And so here becomes another problem here. So
Well, I'm not trying to say there's been crimes committed. To me, knowing as much as I've dealt with government, I think it's more of an incompetence issue, or you said laziness.
Yeah.
It just, it's a lot of work and why do it. So I'm not going to make any accusations of
I'm going to show you how it
malfeasance.
happens. Let me show you how it happens. So this right here is the state comptroller study, okay? And so pick an ISD.
Just do Burleson.
Burleson, okay.
That's the one I know.
So you go to Burleson, so it's a split district. There are multiple counties, and you go to the field studies category worksheet right here. So this right here is the stratums, okay? And this is the property values that the state bounces off the appraisal district to make sure they're within compliance. So for properties valued at $171,000 to $248,000 right here, they have only looked at this many properties.
Okay.
So they're looking at a small statistical sampling. So if this sampling falls within the range, that stratum gets a thumbs up. Okay. So
who chooses these properties? Is that it's random?
I don't want to answer.
Okay.
I do know that, so I do know they're both looking at the same properties because here's local value. And then here's PTAD value. Okay. And then this ratio is the over or under value. Okay. I'll tell you this much. Right. If the central appraisal district determines this and the comptroller then looks at the central appraisal district, we have a problem because then it allows the central appraisal district. That's kind of scary.
Well,
it's not a true check and balance.
Yes. All right. Well,
but the good news is, feel confident that your current Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, chaired by Dwayne Golding, is in the process of solving these problems. So to watch a school district come in and not look at this stuff and just try to undermine this kind of work to solve some of these unanswered questions, that's very troubling to a lot of the citizens. And the school district needs to worry about the school district, but there's a much bigger population out there than just the school.
Well, the problem with all this is that it does lead to suspicion of something other than just the ball was dropped. Now, again, you and I are not saying that somebody's been criminal or anything like that, so let's not get into that conspiratorial area. I think people have dealt with government long enough over the years to know that sometimes government doesn't provide the best service, and so I guess this is something that people 100%. Need to be concerned about. Now, let's say that you and Mr. Hunley and his crew and the rest are successful in changing the procedures, policies, all the rest for the board, and what will the impact be? Some of those unfrozen properties, the owners of those are going to get a higher bill, are they not?
The owner of those will have their properties evaluated fairly, accurately as of January 1st, as the tax code says. It's hard to say.
Surely it's appreciated over a decade.
Sure.
I don't know of any property that hasn't. I was talking to Alex Phillips, and he said some of the most expensive commercial real estate is in Burleson, in this county. And it's gone through the roof.
Sure.
Because I've talked to a couple other people that thought about opening businesses here, and it's more expensive now than it used to be. And so
there's going to be some people that are probably pleasantly surprised.
Really?
The ones that are out of proportion, raised, absolutely.
So there'll be some people that actually benefit.
There should be.
Because I'm thinking unfrozen, when they unfreeze these properties, the beneficiaries will be the taxpayers of this county.
Sure.
All right. Maybe that particular taxpayer may find himself with a higher bill than he or she was accustomed to. But surely the people that also have their properties frozen know that they're frozen. If their bill hasn't changed in 10 years, how are they not somewhat responsible also?
It's their bill does change.
Okay.
Because their bill changes because what actually determines how much taxes you pay is the budgets of the taxing entities and the tax rates they assess. So if the budgets are continually going up and the tax rates adjust annually, you're paying different taxes.
Well, okay, paying different taxes, but you're not paying all the taxes that you would be paying had your property been appropriately evaluated.
You're only paying the appropriate taxes if if your property was appraised at market value, fair market value as of January 1st, that's the only way.
Okay.
Whether you're paying more than you should be or less than you should be because of problems that we've shown here, it's one or the other.
To be frank, I'm really surprised that I haven't heard more about this, because if my property is overvalued, I'd be raising hell about it. And I'm sure that's happened. I'm sure Mr. Porter and the other people involved with the county taxes and school taxes, they go through the remediation process or whatever, the protest process. But still, why have I not heard more about this? I'm surprised a little bit.
So the new Central Appraisal District, again, chaired by Chairman Dwayne Golding, they have hired a very active, very competent, and very involved taxpayer liaison officer. That's sole purpose is to help guide taxpayers who have questions about this process and their individual property through this process. You also have the ability to go to an appraisal review board, which is the formal process. Now, everybody should try to solve this at the Central Appraisal District level and use the taxpayer liaison officer before they go to the appraisal review board, because once they cross that line, there becomes a separation from what I understand. I don't want to misspeak here. So if anyone's listening and I'm misspeaking, please correct me. But you want to try to solve this with the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors and use that taxpayer liaison officer.
To go back to an earlier point I was trying to make, though, is that when I get the notice from Scott Porter, it shows my valuation, okay? And I know for a fact my valuation went up. So I'm not one of those frozen properties. Other people got that same letter, and if they're seeing the same evaluation number for 10 years, doesn't that ring a bell with them saying, hey, I'm lucking out?
How many years last time you got your bill, how many years did you look back to compare?
I looked at the previous year.
Yeah. So,
and I went up from the previous year. So I'm not frozen, right?
Yeah. No, I would say no.
Okay. But I mean, still, I got 10 years, and I'm getting the same evaluation number every year. No changes. I mean, I could accept that for maybe 1 year for in a down economy or whatever else, but over 10 years, I just don't see how anybody could be unaware of the fact that they're benefiting from either some sort of relationship or some sort of incompetence by the board.
I honestly can't answer that question.
I can't either, but
I know me personally. I know me personally now. Texas blesses individuals like me. I'm a veteran. I don't pay property taxes, but the very first question about what appears to be some problems with the appraisal process was my property, and in 3 years, my property had only gone up 1%, and that seems very low. So I used my own property as an example for why there may be some questions that need to be answered.
Well, I'm not going to say my evaluation was up like dramatically. There was 1 year, I think, that they were trying to play catch up.
Was it 23?
It was recently, yes.
A lot of properties seem to have disproportionately gone up after they increased the homestead exemption from 40 to 100,000. Not saying that's why, but that's what it looks like on paper.
It does. There is a causality there, as they say. And it was the previous year.
Yeah. Okay.
And I do know that my evaluation, it wasn't like exorbitant, but it was more than I was accustomed to, you might say. But I don't know. Again, you and I are not accusing anybody of, of anything, either malfeasance or criminal, but it seems to me, I bet if people investigate why these properties haven't changed in 10 years, and is there a connection to the CAD in some way? That's going to raise a lot of serious questions.
The good news is, and I encourage Burleson ISD, who has yet to vote, Mansfield ISD, who has yet to vote, to vote for the current and the recommended Central Appraisal District Board of Directors, because they've already put the process in motion to get to the bottom of this by calling for an independent eyes to come in and look at these methods and processes. So they deserve a lot of credit for that. Why a school district would be against that, like a Godly so obviously is kind of troubling. Some school districts have voted for those candidates without those candidates coming in and speaking to them, and without any communication, at least in open meetings, which is where that should be seen. A lot of them are straddling the fence, voting for both. But what we really want to encourage the school districts left that you need to vote is don't be a puppet of another ISD. If these candidates are not coming out and speaking to you and communicating with you about how they're going to make the Central Appraisal District Board of Directors better moving forward, more fair, more equitable, and within compliance of the tax code, which the current board is, then in an open meeting justify that to your citizens and your the individuals you represent as an elected trustee or city council member.
Well, yeah, I'm learning a lot. If just our last 2 or 3 shows, so I really appreciate it. I hope that listeners share this, because a lot of people, we told many times, listen to it on their own time, and this is something they need to pay attention to, because
it's complicated.
It is
complicated.
Let's talk about, for a few minutes. We have about
Sure.
15 minutes left or so, 10 minutes left. Talk about what's going down in Austin. Now, there are, like I said, now probably 1,000 bills have been pre-filed. And I teach the Texas government class, and some of the things that we talk about is that we have literally 8,000 to 8,500 bills per session filed for a 140-day session. That's why we have so many special sessions. And, and I know there's a time limit, for submitting bills, but you can't submit a bill after that time limit. I think it's mid-March, basically. And then if you have a bill after that, it has to be passed by a supermajority and things of that nature, and usually only in emergencies and whatnot. But by mid-March, we're going to have 8,500 bills probably submitted.
Sure.
To be decided in basically 4+ months. That's why, again, we have special sessions almost every summer after a typical session. Now, there's several bills out there that would eliminate the property tax altogether.
Sure.
All right. I do know that our soon-to-be former state rep, Dwayne Burns, is in favor of eliminating the property tax. And I don't know Ms. Curran's position on that, but he may.
She's 100% in support of it.
Okay.
She's not in a position. She's not in office yet. She takes office in January.
Right.
But she is 100% for that. And her reasoning for that is that while she was out door knocking and campaigning, that was the most discussed about and talked about issue. She's a huge advocate for it. And in fact, she actually wears an eliminate property tax shirt in some places she goes. So yeah, she's there's no question in my mind that's probably her strongest issue now, based on what the public's telling her is the biggest concern they have.
Yes, and I could see why she would get that kind of feedback, knocking on doors and whatnot. But the first obvious question is, you eliminate the property tax, what would replace that revenue?
Funny you should ask. Can you share my screen there?
Sure, yeah. So I figured you'd have something prepared. Doggone this guy. He's, he's going to have a chart for everything. Okay, so you eliminate the property tax.
So let's start at a macro level. So So this is LegiScan. This is where you can see all the bills, Senate bills, House bills that are.
I use this website. It's a good site. I send my Texas government students to it when we talk about the legislature.
Okay, so just to give an idea, these are all bills that are being presented just on the property tax issue so far, and I mean there is a bunch, right?
And they'll consolidate all that into one massive bill, no doubt.
Oh yeah, it'll be 712 pages with 3 days to read, right?
Well, and we should also know, as we know about government, no bill in the history of man that's been even considered at all has ever passed in the original form it was proposed.
Correct.
The only time I remember any bill of any size being passed with very little oversight was that Obama bill, and right in the beginning of his administration, for America Rebuilds Act or whatever it is. It's about $780 billion of money. And it's passed in 72 hours. And it turned out to be a disaster because of all the pork belly spending that was in it,
So this is probably the bill that encompasses the elimination and our replacement of revenue. And
who filed it?
TOTH.
Yeah.
So Rep Toth, he filed this, and he filed it on November 12th. And thanks for Craig Hunley and Russell Bennett, who he's farther south, but he's involved with the Eliminate Property Tax movement. They had a large part of this, but this is right off Legiscan, and so this is where you should go to look at this bill. And here again, what people need to understand is this bill will hit a committee, and this thing will be drastically different.
It'll
than
be marked
what it is
up,
now.
and the lobbyists will get a piece of the action. And the usual is, again, is something I teach in class, is that you would go through the process of a bill becomes a law at the state level, and the time limit and the limitations on staffing. So there will be some outside influences, to say the least, on bills of any kind of bill.
Sure, and so. Without going through the entire bill, which we don't really have time to do today, but I encourage everyone, go to Legiscan and look at this. This is HB 960, House Bill 960, and it's relating to the repeal or limitations on certain state and local taxes, including school district maintenance and operation ad valorem, the enactment of a state and local added taxes, and related school finance reform imposing taxes. So this is a replacement of the property taxes, and everyone gets wrapped around the axle about, another tax. If you're eliminating one tax, you're putting more disposable income in taxpayers' pockets. And then they have control without the threat of losing their home, the threat of eviction, the threat of homelessness, in how they make the decisions on spending tax.
Well, our friends to the north in Oklahoma have very low property taxes. I've mentioned before the show, my cousin has 8 acres of homestead property, and he pays about 10% of what I pay. And I have less than an acre, about 0.8. And, but they also have a lot more sales tax, particularly on groceries and pharmaceuticals, which we do not have. So with any of these proposals, we may end up paying more for groceries, more for pharmaceuticals, a higher rate of, because I glanced through that, and we were glancing through it before the show, and there was an increase in the ad valorem tax and whatever else. Would it benefit me personally? Probably. Would it benefit somebody, though, in the lower income stratus?
Property tax. If you have a domicile over your head that is on a piece of property, whether you own that or not, those property taxes are being added to the amount you pay.
Sure.
Whether it's through rent, whether it's through utilities, whether it's through the insurance, whatever it is.
Right.
So, and that's your home. That's one of the most basic, fundamental principles of the founding of our country was property ownership, and never being able to own your property, never being able to fully have it free and clear under the current system is pretty troubling, especially as people age and go on fixed incomes. And the reality of it is that you have control in how you choose to spend your money. So therefore, if you don't buy the top of the line, Toyota Sienna minivan for your family, and you do one step down, you have a decision making in that process. The reality of it is now that your home, your domicile, is held hostage over your head. And you bring up Oklahoma. Well, a lot of things of what Oklahoma does is because they don't have this property tax that they can so effectively leverage. They also have a much larger or less bloated administrative state within the schools. School district senior administration has increased close to 90%, while teacher and enrollment has increased at under 10% over the last many years. So there's a lot of bloat in some of the schools that can be cut back to also offset some of this, and that's a whole nother discussion for another day.
Yeah, sure enough. But I'm just
because nobody wants defunding the schools, but they do want responsible spending that's not putting this unnecessary fear, but this real fear that people can be forced out of their homes. And every year you have this 100-pound gorilla on your shoulder waiting for the bill to come in the mail. A local mom in Godley we're helping right now. Her parents owned a property and left it to her. Overnight, her parents, or the property annual property taxes went from a little over $4,000 to close to $12,000 overnight. So you had an 80-year-old man whose property taxes had been frozen because he's over 65. He's voting for everything that the schools are saying it won't affect your property. It won't affect your property. It won't affect your property. And they're not lying, but they're selectively removing the fact that when you leave your generational wealth and your legacy to your children, you wreck them when that gets caught up overnight.
Well, I guess the answer that to the question is what people want to know is, let's say I'm a renter, or like my daughter, she rents an apartment.
Sure.
Now, would those savings be passed on to her, or would the landlord just keep the money?
That would be an individual question for those landlords. But I'll tell you what, if I wanted to be a competitive landlord, I would. If I wanted to be competitive, I would make competitive rental rates.
You think?
So absolutely.
I don't know. I'm trying to imagine in my head some of these landlords, particularly the large corporate landowners and landlords, because we think of landlords as an individual person, but we know that most of these rental properties are now being bought out by major corporations, international corporations in some cases. I just wonder if they're going to pass the savings on to the renters, or just profit more.
Well, Brad, I'll see you in Austin at the committee that's doing about this, and we'll petition that committee to put that in the bill. That they have to give the savings if property tax is eliminated to their renters.
Okay.
That's what the great thing about committee is down in Austin.
Well, okay, that would, if I were on that committee, that'd be the first question I'd ask. And if
it's a fair question.
If I could guarantee that these people who are going to be paying higher sales taxes on a whole range of products, and maybe we may end up taxing groceries or something like that, I would want them to know that they actually would have the money to do it.
Sure.
That if they're going to get like a $300 rent pay cut, I could see the benefits. I mean, it really can. I just, we have hamstrung ourselves in one sense about the income tax, which I'm sure you would not prefer.
No.
State income tax.
Absolutely not.
I would not prefer it either, but I know now constitutionally it's impossible. But that's off the table. And they have state income tax in Oklahoma.
Oh, other states do, sure.
Yeah, I think 43 out of 50 do.
Most do.
Yeah. I just want to make sure in my mind, if I were voting for this, that I would not be penalizing, so to speak, the lower income citizens of our state, and know that whatever they're paying in rent is going to be reduced, and so they'll have maybe $300 more a month to pay the higher level of taxes, which, like you say, does involve a bit of discretion. They can make their choices.
And I mean, every good and services they purchase is off of property that is taxed right now. So I mean, yes, it's dependent on responsible, trickle down. At the same time, this is why we have committee. So the committee can sort these kind of fine details out. And yes, you don't want to take one step forward and two steps back, and that's always a risk with anything. But the bottom line is, right now, this is one of the biggest issues going on in Texas. And people are being forced out of their homes, and just about every candidate that campaigned last election cycle, this was one of the biggest things. It was huge in the Republican platform down in Austin. So.
It just kind of occurred to me as we were talking here, and I was making a point about landlords and whatnot. What about tax abatements that cities offer? That's going to be pretty much useless, right? I mean, because in the biggest...
Well, a lot of them do sales tax. A lot of it's sales tax. There's 313 energy agreements. That's a whole other ball of wax that we don't want to get into that. But a lot of those are sales tax abatements.
Okay, but also there are property tax abatements. That's how we get that big warehouse district down south of us.
Well, how much more money are you saving if there's no property tax?
I'm through quite a bit, but
more than you would with an abatement.
Of course. Yeah. But that abatements have always been a competitive tool between municipalities to draw business in. Now, if everybody's on the same playing field, you're going to have to promote your community in a whole different way.
Sales tax abatement.
Well, that's going to be interesting. And we're almost
reduced tap fees. Reduced tap fees. There's millions of ways for local. But bottom line is, businesses want to succeed. They're going to go where the customer base is and the purchasing power is.
Why don't we talk about what's going on in a couple of months? You want to do that?
Sure.
Okay, because I know that the Christmas season's going to be pretty busy for both of us. I'm sure you got plans. You got those youngins to deal with. Making sure they have a good Christmas. So
yes, sir.
But maybe about mid-January. That way, the session will be in, and you could by then. I'm sure we'll have some at least initial direction on what's going on with this bill and also the school vouchers. And I don't know, is that something that you also keep up with?
So HB1 is dead. That's the one that was in the special session. There's going to be plenty of legislation that comes across. And here again, let's see what it looks like in committee. With strings, I'm completely against it. So I have absolutely no tolerance for it.
No tolerance for the vouchers?
It would be a hard pull. I can't see them loosening strings up enough. And when I say strings, they're going to mandate. It's ironic. You hear every legislator in every school district talk about how much they hate STAR. Well, in the voucher bill HB1, guess what was mandatory was STAR assessment for homeschoolers. So that would, let's look at the details of the bill. You have to get the bill in front of you and see what's in it. But I don't want to see an omnibus. School districts right now are complaining about their funding. Well, if they would have voted for that voucher bill, it was a massive increase in funding to public schools. It was an omnibus. I'm against omnibuses.
Oh, yeah. But a lot of stuff is slid in, those macro bills like that.
But they significantly hurt their own funding by pushing so hard against that choice bill, which really wouldn't have impacted them in the short term at all. So
a lot of this is a lot to think about.
Yes, sir.
You must have a lot of time on your hands. I
Too
know
much.
that. No, I don't think so. I know you're involved with your kids' schools.
Yes, sir. 3 days a week.
3 days a week, and also
they're at Christmas play practice right now.
Oh yeah,
So I'm missing it. So.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, I'll get you on your way. Guys, I appreciate Taylor, what you're doing. Thank you, Greg, for
Burleson
coming by.
ISD, Tuesday, Burleson ISD, a week from tomorrow, Burleson ISD's voting, and that's going to determine whether or not they're a puppet to Godly ISD or not. Hopefully they'll at least justify whatever they vote, justify it in open meetings. The last time this happened, they opened the meeting and went to executive session, came out of an executive session and made a motion. Michael Yancey made a motion, no discussion, and allocated votes in a way that nobody had any idea how it just happened. So Burleson ISD, come out and justify your vote, however you're going to do it, and explain to your citizens that you've been elected to represent why you're choosing to allocate your votes that way. We'll look forward to that a week from Tuesday.
I'm going to give them benefit of the doubt. I know several of those members, and I'm going to trust them to do the right thing. Because
as long as they justify to the people, justify your vote to the people. That's the biggest thing.
Well, I enjoyed it today. I really did.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Taylor, this is a beautiful studio.
Thank you.
Tomorrow I have Michelle Humphrey and a guest. Forget her name. I'm sorry. But they're going to talk about, taking care of yourself during the holidays, hydration and working out and all this other stuff. Because, we sometimes we let that go and whatnot. And it's an important issue. And then we have an extra show on Thursday talking about the Crowley House of Hope with Elizabeth Becker, not just what they need for Christmas, but also their role in the Toys for Tots campaign. And we'll see y'all tomorrow at noontime.
Thanks, Brad.
You bet.